Source engine maps, along with maps for all game engines that use binary space partitioning, must have their inner space sealed off from the outside void. Even if your map has an open sky, it must be sealed using brushes that have the skybox tool texture to signify that the skybox will appear there. If this rule is not followed, your map will have what is called a leak, and several bad things can happen, including potentially not being able to successfully compile your map. Leaks are identified while compiling by this message. Since leaks do cause several problems, there are other messages often associated with leaks, but this is the only one that actually indicates a leak. If you don't see this, you don't have a leak, except for area portal leaks, which look like this. In most cases, this is immediately followed by another message saying which entity quote-unquote leaked. Many new mappers think they can fix leaks by deleting that entity. This is usually not so. The problem is usually not with the entity in question. If you delete that entity, it will just say another one quote-unquote leaked. Notice I did say usually and in most cases. We'll talk about the edge cases in a bit. Leaks are often not obvious, so to find a leak, you will need to look at the point file. First, you must compile the map since it is VBSP that identifies leaks, then go to Map, Load Point File. If you are asked to load the default point file, click Yes. There is no reason to click No. If you don't get this message and are instead taken straight to a File Explorer window, then either your map is free of leaks or you're experiencing an edge case we'll discuss later. Somewhere on your map there is now a red line that you need to go find. The easiest way to do this is to go into your viz groups and uncheck Auto. Once you find the line, follow it to see the path that VBSP found from the inside of your map to the outside. Somewhere along that path, you need to place a brush or move an existing brush into place to seal up the leak. VBSP can only report one leak at a time, so every time you fix a leak, you must recompile your map to ensure the first leak was actually fixed and to see if another one pops up. If another one is reported, you must click Load Point File again to see the new leak. Since compiling your map takes some time, you should turn off VViz and VRAD when you're compiling to check for leaks. They play no role in detecting leaks. You can also set the game to not run after you finish compiling, which I recommend in general. If you see a leak in the compile log while it's stuck running VViz or VRAD, some versions of Hammer let you press Ctrl-C to stop the compile. You can also abort the programs in Task Manager. By mapping more smarter, you can prevent leaks before they happen. Be conscious about gaps you create while making your brushes. If you aren't using Grid Snap, start using it. If you are using it but keep it at grid size 1, start using larger sizes when it doesn't prevent you from placing something how you want. Keeping your brushes aligned to each other will help you avoid leaks and avoid creating more viz leaves than are necessary, which will mean your map compiles faster. Some new mappers get the idea that they can avoid all leaks if they surround their map in a big box. Do not do this. This defeats most of the purpose of sealing your map in the first place. Your map will take significantly longer to compile. The only time you should do this is if your map is extremely open, like the Zen maps from Half-Life, since in that case that's the only thing you can do. Only opaque world brushes can seal a map. If a brush has a translucent texture anywhere on it, it is not opaque, it is translucent. This includes water. A brush is considered a world brush when it's not tied to any entity. The term world comes from WorldSpawn, which is the entity you edit when you click on map properties and represents all the static props and non-entity brushes in a map. And finally, they must be brushes specifically, not any kind of point entity, even one with a model or a displacement. If your point file is going through something that is not an opaque world brush, that is normal. To seal a leak that's going through one such thing, put no-draw brushes behind that thing. Despite the fact that no-draw is really invisible, it is technically opaque and won't incur any harm to your compile time or performance. To see only world brushes, you can again go to your viz groups, uncheck auto, check world geometry, and then uncheck displacements, and also tool brushes since most of those are translucent. If this hides a brush that you thought was world, and when you select that brush you don't see the entity properties screen, then that brush really was an entity and you're in solid selection mode. Use either of the other two modes to see the brush correctly again. If you have a leak going through a brush that you've double checked is world and is opaque, then simply try remaking the brush. If the leak starts going through a different brush every time you do this, then Hammer might have really messed up the map somehow. I myself have no clue why this happens, but you can fix this by copying your entire map into a new file. VBSP uses entities to understand what is the inside of your map. It makes sense if you think about it. Why would an entity be outside the level after all? This means if your map has no entities, it also cannot tell what's inside or out, so this also shows in the compile log as a leak, but there won't be a second message to say which entity leaked, and there is no point file to load. Your map should always have a spawn entity like info player start at the very least. Brush entities that don't have an origin key value are completely ignored when detecting leaks, so if your map only has entities such as those, then that will also cause the same kind of leak. This also means if you have an entity that actually is outside of your level, that also counts as a leak. The only part of an entity that is actually considered inside or outside is its origin, so make sure the origin is always inside the map. Brush entities are known for having their origins end up in odd places when they're moved around. You can easily fix misplaced origins by selecting everything in your map and then going to Tools, Center Origins. If you find yourself actually needing to keep the origin outside the map, like for example it's a prop with a weirdly placed model origin, or some rotating entity that actually has to keep its origin outside the map in order to rotate correctly, then you can place a single world brush around the origin to keep it from leaking. Again, brush entities that don't have an origin key value are ignored when detecting leaks, so they can in fact stay outside the map, but there's not much reason to do that. Area portals come with their own kind of leak. Much like how the inside of your map must be sealed off from the void, every distinct area of your map that you create with area portals must be sealed off from one another. If this is not so, then the area portals can't actually figure out what objects they can hide. This kind of leak has its own special message to announce itself, and the point file will loop from one side of the area portal to another. You fix this much like a regular leak. Create or extend a brush to break the line, or if appropriate, another area portal. There is a note on the Valve Wiki that says you should avoid having a Func Viz cluster go through an area portal or the surface of water, because apparently that also causes a leak. This certainly is a bad idea because both of those things do have special considerations related to Vizleaves, but when I tried doing it in a small test map, I couldn't see any issues, so yeah, I don't know. While the entities inside an instance can leak, a Func instance itself will not leak. Neither will any entity whose origin is at the map origin. Not very useful, but I'm adding it in just for the sake of thoroughness, I guess. That's everything you really need to know about leaks. The rest of this video will answer some non-essential questions you might have. Why are leaks bad? First and foremost, VBSP post-leak detection, VViz, VRAD, and the game engine itself are all operating under the assumption that your map is sealed. By breaking that assumption, things will naturally not work right. VBSP may fail to create a BSP file entirely, or it may fail to create the PRT file, meaning VViz can't optimize visibility and VRAD can't bounce light. It might also create one improperly, leading to oddities in the visibility optimization and lighting of your map. In what is certainly the most extreme case I've ever seen, it also means the game's movement code regards the outside as playable space, meaning you can end up outside the map in some cases, for instance by moving through portals in certain ways. But the deeper reason, which is why everything is built on that assumption, is optimization. Compiling a map, as you'll probably soon learn, takes a lot of time. Every part of a level has to be processed in many different ways, and then the game has its own considerations like rendering. If you can cut out any of that work, you should. There's no reason to do work on the outer side of a map that nobody will ever see or interact with without cheats. Of course, this is true of any game engine, but Source is an engine that employs a rendering technique called binary space partitioning. In BSP, you have to divide the level up into several areas, which are called Vizleaves, and there are way too many that need to be created to do it manually, so VBSP automatically makes them based on how brushes are shaped. Regardless of if there is a leak, Vizleaves are created on the outside of the map as well. If there is no leak, then we'll successfully notice that those outside leaves are outside and give them special treatment later, which I imagine mainly consists of simply skipping over them in most places in code. Which leads to the next question, how is a leak found? We can't tell what's in or out, but only accurately. We can establish an area that we know is definitely outside. We look at the coordinates and size of every world brush and create a box that fully encompasses all of them. Then for every entity, we mark the visleaf it resides in as being occupied, which basically just means it's considered inside the level, and then that's done recursively for all neighboring visleaves. If this process ever spreads out to touch the bounding box we created before, then there's a leak.